Hi, and welcome to the It's Just Business podcast with myself, Richard Price. In this podcast, I interview some of the best business minds and entrepreneurs, diving deep into their business journey to get those valuable business lessons they have learned for entrepreneurs like you to succeed on your business journey. So listen up, listen in, let's begin. Hi everyone, welcome to the It's Just Business podcast, episode 2. Today I am joined by Jamie Conway. He is the founder of WhyBuy.app, and he's come to tell us a bit more about his business and his journey so far. So, hi Jamie, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, Richard?
I am great, thank you for asking, and happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday to you too, and Happy New Year to everyone as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, WhyBuy.app, you are the founder. Many people might not know about it because it's relatively new. Could you just tell us a bit more about what it does?
Yeah, absolutely. Why is a relatively simple concept. If you think about all the stuff that you have at home that you hardly ever use, how much it costs you, how much space it takes up, and basically the hassle of owning it. What WhyBuy does is we are an app that lets you go online and you might need something like a hot tub, you might need a drill, you might need a ladder, you might need a patio jet washer, you might need a patio heater. Basically, all the things in your life that you need sometimes, but you don't use all the time, you hire them from us. We have a curated platform where we either own or we have deals done with local businesses to provide stuff with you. So it's not peer to peer, it's not people lending stuff via our platform because I'm a massive fan of the sharing economy and I'm a massive fan of peer to peer. But if I need to do something serious at home and I need a certain tool, I need to know it's coming from a company rather than what might come out of the bag if I do it on a peer-to-peer platform. So we've launched last June, but basically the concept is unless you use it all the time, Richard, you shouldn't own it. It's a waste of money. If you think of your own personal P&L, how much money have you got tied up in stuff that you rarely use?
Absolutely. If I look around the house now, there's probably about 20% that I use day to day, perhaps, if that. 70% that would never see the light of day, and 10% that's once in a blue moon. So,
Oh, absolutely. And it's even things like during lockdown, I think we've become even worse at buying things. We were quite quick off the mark. We did a lot of deals with local gyms. So when it came to weights, or if you needed a treadmill, or if you need a spin bike, just for a month, say, these are exactly the kind of things that you don't want to buy because in a month's time, or 2 months' time, or whenever gyms reopen, you don't want to have this thing sitting in the corner of your living room or your bedroom just taking up space, and it's cheaper and it's better quality by hiring.
yeah, absolutely. I have a friend who bought one of those pull up dip stations, and it took him about half a day to put together and assemble. And then he found, 4 weeks in, he hadn't used it at all, and it's just taken up half of his room. So, yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah. It's a great thing to dry clothes on. I'm not sure how much fitness you get out of it.
I'm not sure too. Jamie, could you tell us a bit more about how you came up with the idea of home goods renting? Perhaps a bit more about your background because it might be related.
Yeah, so I originally started working in television as my career, and I was working for a small TV company in Dublin that was bought by Liberty Global. Liberty Global would be better known for owning Virgin in the UK, and they own UPC, which is one of the major cable companies and TV companies in Europe. And basically, we got bought by them, and I got sent to Budapest, and I was working with them there. It was one of those things where you go over for a 6 month gig, and 3 years later, you look back and you go, "Wow, this has gone on for a while." But while I was there one year, this is going back a long time. I've been playing with the Why-Buy idea for almost a decade in my head. But while I was there, I hosted New Year's Eve one night, and I thought, oh, let's do a classy night, and I bought loads of stuff, including a chocolate fountain. And it got used. It was fun. People enjoyed it, but it got washed, cleaned, repackaged up back into a box. And over the next 7 or 8 years, that chocolate fountain lived in 5 different countries with me, but never came out of the box. And I suddenly started realizing how much stuff we all own. And about 2 years ago, I was standing on a street waiting for a mate in South London, a little suburban street with about 20 houses on it, with gardens out the front. And there's about 15 of them out the front mowing their lawns. And they all had all their own lawnmowers and all their own stuff. And I just thought to myself, that's really expensive. There's absolutely no sense here whatsoever. So I started looking at the sharing economy and I started looking at peer to peer. But the challenge with peer to peer was you're just not sure what comes out of the box when you use it. Not to kind of take away, like people do it really well, but for certain things that you're doing where you need high quality, if I want a carpet shampooer, I want one that is properly maintained. I want it spotlessly clean. I call it, Richard, the hotel room kind of concept. When you stay in a hotel room, you do not want to be reminded that someone else has ever stayed in that hotel room. And it's the same as when you hire something. When you hire a car from Hertz or Avis or Sixt, you don't want to be reminded that somebody else was in that with their family and kids before. And that's the thing. That's where I think peer to peer sharing economy falls down is that when you use it, it doesn't feel like this is absolutely almost as good as new and no one else has ever touched it before. There's also a massive issue over things like product liability insurance and everything like that. So we were quick to get stuck in and change that. But basically, the concept came from me realizing Uber a few years ago, particularly for those of us in London, identified years ago, you don't need to own a car in London. Like, most of us don't need to own it. And even if you have kids now, Uber gives you that flexibility that you can get from A to B when traditional public transport doesn't suit. And then Deliveroo came along and it kind of did the same thing for food. When I was in university, when you were in university, it was possible to get a pizza, a Chinese, an Indian, whatever you wanted delivered. All that Deliveroo and Just Eat and Uber Eats did was they brought them all into one ecosystem. And that's what we've done. We've brought basically anything you might need at home into one ecosystem. And we deliver and collect straight to your house in a specific time slot that you want and charge you for the length of time you have it.
Nice, nice. So is Why Buy your first venture, or have you been on the roadshow before?
No, this is like my second venture. So previously, I was in City Television, and we were the largest city TV operator. And I came out of that 2 years ago when David Montgomery bought in. David would be known for being the former chief exec of Mirror Group PLC newspapers. And David, I exited then and planned on taking a year off to take up diving and skiing more. And after about 4 months, was bored silly and wanted to get back into the game. So I was lucky. I did okay. So I was able to start looking at this and getting the app developed and hiring a team of coders. And we did the first wireframe of the app and went out to VCs to see who wanted to fund it. And we just got a really positive reaction, and they all just went, "This is exactly what is needed at the moment." So it took a long time to get the logistics part right because I don't think even allowing for COVID when we're all at home a lot more than we used to be. The fact of the matter is that I don't want to get a delivery slot anymore that's between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. I'm 13 hours. We needed to get this part right, and that took a huge amount of time. I want to get this to the point where you're at home and you realize I need a printer because I'm working on something and I need to print it out tonight. I can get to you in 6 hours. That's where I want to get to at the moment. You can only order the day before, but I want to get to a point where you go, bang, we can deliver to you in 6 hours. That you need something like a friend has called round unexpectedly, you need a spare bed. You suddenly need a patio heater because the neighbors are coming around and you're doing the socially distanced responsible thing in the garden. By all means, I can get you a patio heater or a fire pit or bean bags or whatever it is you need. Upgrade your lifestyle.
Absolutely. And it's the world we're living in now. People want things now at a click of a button, and Amazon, for better or worse, have been a proponent of that.
Absolutely. I just think that the problem with Amazon is that you end up buying so much stuff, and I'm just not sure it's environmentally sustainable. If you're going to have, like, if you look at how many items you have at home, if I just take power tools as the example, like if you see the stuff that needs to be dug out of the ground to create lithium-ion batteries and stuff like that, and we all have them in our homes, we use them once a year, if that. And you kind of think to yourself, that is not sustainable. Why are we doing it this way? And what you end up doing is when you need to use your drill, for example, that one time, the battery's not charged, the bits are missing, the power cable to recharge it is somewhere else. And what you end up doing is you buy another one, but you buy the cheap one because you only need to do something very small. And as a result, you get into this really, really kind of like, let's buy cheap crap, which is not sustainable. It all comes across the globe to the UK because we don't manufacture any of that stuff here. And it comes across here, and the environmental cost is just off the scale. So like WhyBuy is this perfect solution. It addresses your own, it saves you money, it saves you space, it saves you hassle, but it also gives you better quality products and it's more environmentally responsible.
That's great. That's great. I mean, it's definitely the way the world is going. If you think about, Tesla, and everyone's getting very conscious about the world. Electric cars are the craze now, and I think will be in the future. So from the fact that you're coming out this, on the outset with this sort of in mind, is great.
Yeah. Well, all of our delivery vans are 100% electric.
Right.
We generate almost zero waste. Like even the electricity that we use to power those vans, or even in our office, we have almost a zero footprint. We can't get it down to absolute zero, but the whole point is that we have a minimal impact on the environment. Like if you take something like what to use an example, take something like a pressure washer for cleaning your car or cleaning your driveway or your patio or something like that. People buy those all the time, and they're expensive pieces of kit. A huge amount of resources go into those, but they only get used once. Those things are designed to go for hours. By hiring them, you're getting a higher quality spec because we tend to do very powerful things because we want people to say this is better than owning. And what you end up with is you end up with people once they're in our ecosystem and using the app, they suddenly start kind of realizing, well, actually, this weekend the kids are going to be kind of bored and everything during lockdown. Let's get a hot tub and an outdoor projector and do crazy outdoor cinema. And we've had people do this, maybe not now in the depths of winter as we're recording this, but people do this. They kind of get this stuff, and it's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Well, it's great that to know that this stuff is available. I could just click a button, get a projector and a hot tub, and there you go.
But it frees you from having to own stuff.
The commitment.
Yeah, it frees you from having to have that kind of like owner item relationship. We free you from that. It's like if you're not using a food processor at least kind of 3, 4, 5 times a year, get a better one from us just when you need it for half a day or a full day or 2 days or whatever you need. Like it was funny over Christmas, people were hiring off us spare ovens and warming units and things like that. And you kind of think to yourself, yeah, perfect, because you don't want like you can't fit everything in your one oven. But this is an exact perfect example of yeah, absolutely have that facility without the hassle of after Christmas going, great, now I've got all this stuff that I never use.
Yeah, yeah, so true. And it's interesting the selection of words that you use in terms of you can free people up from their ownership responsibilities. Like it's, the times where I'm doing spring cleaning and I get rid of a whole bunch of stuff which I haven't used for the past, 2 years. It's liberating, and the fact that you're providing that, it's great.
Yeah, and it's so we have basically two types of customers. We have those who are doing it when it comes to task orientated stuff, and that might be shampooing the carpets or eventually putting up the shelves or stripping wallpaper or whatever you need to hire stuff off us from. But then the fun side of things, like we've had people kind of hiring poker tables off us. We happen to carry a lot of gaming stuff and things like if you're having your friends over, if you're having 4 or 5 friends over for poker night, upgrade for maybe about £8 each. Get a Vegas poker table for the night, and it's just up. It just makes it a more pleasant experience. We pick it up, we drop it off. You don't need to really worry about it. But what it does is it just upgrades your lifestyle that little bit and makes the whole event more pleasant and enjoyable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just going back a bit again to your previous exit, you had a little break. You had an itch that needed to be scratched, and you came up with the idea. And so I wanted to ask, how long did it take you roughly to develop? and I didn't realize you raised funds. So could you tell us a bit more about that as well?
So it was when I was home at Christmas, probably it was probably a year ago. Yeah, it was actually this time last year we finalized our VC deal, and it was probably 6 months before that that I was designing the app and figuring out what we call the happy path for the customers, and working with an app team and coders to design that. And then we were looking at, was there anything off the shelf that we could get when it came to inventory management and back end management and order processing and stuff. And we built most of it ourselves. We use an inventory management tool that we bought off the shelf, but it took us about 6 months to build that to a point where the investors were happy to sign the deal, write checks. And then it took us about another 6 months to prep and move forward. Startups just have a miserable time. It doesn't matter what your track record is in business. But even things like if you want to, like even when it came to us getting van leases, when it came to us being able to hire out the warehouse that we operate out of, everything is just absolutely off the scale, complicated. And I've been through it before, so I knew about it, but it's not very conducive. You end up spending a significant percentage of your time on admin stuff where you're meant to be seeing the bigger vision and the bigger picture. And that causes that's quite irritating because you want to focus on your own business, and suddenly you're like dealing with 8 different lease hire companies who might be able to provide you with vans going forward. It's a very difficult thing. Britain is brilliant at providing things like the EIS schemes and kind of like BCT schemes and everything. There's fantastic things there to encourage investment. But the problem is that you could be a startup with a bank account overflowing with money, and there are certain things that just when you're a startup, there's a red flag, and it's really, really hard to get certain things done, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's for year one, year two. It is tricky. It's an uphill battle because a lot of these companies that extend credit or you're negotiating with, they
Exactly.
want to see 2 years worth of accounts and you haven't got it. So unless you put a personal guarantor down, it's tricky.
Well, even with PGs, I have no problem with the concept of PGs and stuff like that, since it's my business. But it's even with PGs, there are certain things out there that you cannot get sorted with, and it's incredibly frustrating that you're kind of sitting there and going, "But we're backed," and it's not about cash. If it was about cash, then you'd be able to turn. I'll put it to you this way: we had a situation where we had enough money. If we needed to, we could buy our delivery vans, but that would have been tying up so much money of a new business rather than being able to lease. Meanwhile, you're seeing all these guys who are being offered, like mega corporations like Amazon and DPD, who are doing all these massive deals with Mercedes to convert their things to electric and everything. And I completely get why the scale happens that way. But when you're a small company trying to start up, you just have these hurdles that most people don't realize what how high these hurdles are and how high you have to jump to get over them. That's very, very difficult to do it unless you need to be prepared for some very, very disappointing conversations along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, you really have to bang the doors repeatedly and loudly. How did you come over that obstacle?
We were very lucky. No, a big shout out to Renault actually, because what happened was Nissan are the biggest operators when it comes to electric van fleets, and they're an absolutely amazing product. But because they were the only one in the market 18 months ago, they could basically do business with whoever they wanted, and we weren't getting a look in. And then Renault had decided. I got into a conversation with a guy who works for Renault, and he said, "Look, not for nothing, but we actually think that your concept's really interesting. We don't want to sell our vans anymore. We want to sell them. It's almost like a software as a service model. And what it is that you get them, and after 2 or 3 years, we take them back, strip out the batteries, replace them, straighten the panels, upgrade the tech in it, and then effectively build a new van using the old shell. And then it goes back out again. It's like reconditioned. because we think in the future the idea of people owning certain things is madness, including these things. And I was like, that's what our business is about. And he goes, yeah, I know. This is why we can get into it. So they put us in contact with their finance company, and we pay less than we had actually business than we had planned for in the business now on, because but they were really forward thinking, and they were just there kind of saying, look, this is the future. And we were just very lucky that the nature of our business tapped in very nicely to where their management team were at the time in saying, yeah, this is also the thing. Our timing was really good as well, Richard, because suddenly in I think it was in June, TFL decided to whack up the congestion charge for all non-electric vehicles to 15 quid Monday to Sunday. And like just to map it out, for us to have to be able to put a van on the road, like not including staff costs with insurance and fuel, that was coming in at 1,000 a month. And now the way we operate, we're on less than a quarter of that.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
no, so they're really supportive to us.
So, how many vans do you have in the fleet today?
At the moment, three, but we'll be at six by Easter. And it's no, we're growing quite fast at the moment. We're we're quite happy how it is, but the way the platform is designed, customers can't book. Like it's like going onto Ocado or going onto Tesco's to order home deliveries. If there isn't a slot available, you won't be able to choose it. And we tend to find that nobody's hiring off us for 3 hours. Nobody wants a bouncy castle for an hour. They want it for like half a day. So if we can't do it at 11 to 12 in the morning, they'll go, all right, I'll get it at 10 instead. And they just go and pick it up an hour earlier. And then, so it all works out in the wash. But the logistics engine is very good at calculating, can we fulfill these orders? So we're not kind of like ending up with a guy in Enfield whose next delivery is in Westminster. And you're like, how the hell is he going to do that? The whole system's programmed to take that into account.
Fantastic. And that was out of the box, or?
No, that's how we did that. We built that back end system. It's for me, it's got to be that people can just go, yeah, I know that, like we do, right? If we have fun things, like the drivers will constantly tell me, they go, it's so funny, they're literally hovering at the doorstep waiting for you to arrive. And I was like, what were you delivering? And they were like, a wine fridge and a hot tub. And I was like, yeah, I'd probably be quite excited about that. I said, if you were delivering a carpet shampooer and a ladder, I don't think I'd be kind of like getting excited and looking out the window waiting for you.
I don't think so too.
Different customers get motivated by different things. With the best will in the world, we hire out these things for clearing drains. It's this kind of thing that you feed down your drain and it does all this kind of clearing stuff and everything like that. Let's be honest, with the best will in the world, you're never going to look forward to that arriving because it's a skanky job. We do make it easier, but it's still one nobody wants to think about.
There's a limit. There's a limit to these things.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you launched in June, June 2020. What was your marketing plan? What was your launch strategy? What was you thinking about in the run up to that time and that point? You know, how was you looking to acquire customers? You know, what were your channels, etc.?
Well, look, no matter what anyone tells you, the best market research you can do is just talk to friends, talk to people you trust, talk to people who know both B2B and B2C, any kind of connections you have at all. Just keep throwing the idea out. And I did that. And the one thing that struck me was nobody was telling me it was nuts. And you kind of think to yourself, if you ask enough people, at some point, somebody has to turn around and say, no, this is a bad idea. And I wasn't getting that. So I was going on holidays in February of 2019, it would have been. And this is when I was really beginning to play with it. And this is when I was on my spare time. So during my kind of like midlife crisis, which wasn't a crisis at all, but kind of, no, I was going off skiing for 2 weeks. And I set up a dummy Google ad account just for London. And it was, what are people searching for? And was I getting click throughs on it? And asking people, look, if you're interested in this, give me your email address and everything like that. And I spoke to the guys in Google and said, look, this is my budget. And they said, yeah, that's good for a month. And I remember it. I was literally standing on a ski slope in Austria. My phone rang and I answered it. And it was this guy in Google. He just goes, listen, Jamie, just to let you know, your budget's been burnt through already. And I went, And it's only been 9 days. And this guy says to me, he goes, yeah, he goes, you're whatever it is you're doing here, he says, you really have clicked into this quite nicely. He said, there's even referrals happening. And I went, happy days. I logged in on my phone and turned off the campaign and just thought, yeah, I'm onto something good here. And then I started looking at models elsewhere, of other things in the sharing economy. And this was the thing, I was never convinced that we had to how to go about, do we own the stock? Do partners own the stock? Is it a case of peer to peer and everything like that? So a lot of the rest of 2019 was based on doing that. So really boringly, to put it in simple terms, I proved to myself there was demand. I knew from talking to the app team that I had hired that the actual concept of the process of doing it, because we've made this very like, I always refer to it as browsing and ordering off us is like browsing one of the food apps and ordering a burger. Here you go. Do you need extras? Yeah, you want the printer. Do you need paper? Add it on. Do you need, if you're doing something like the hot tub, do you need an extra long hose? What do you need and everything? All of that had been done. So I had the demand. I knew we could do it. And then the next bit was, how do we actually launch and get conversion? So from that point of view, it was quite a straight line. I would say that the biggest challenge we've had is in terms of marketing, funnily enough, because people still assume it's peer to peer. And for certain things people don't mind borrowing. But if it involves something that you're going to touch and feel or eat from, or it involves something that's going to interact with your kids, you do not want something that's coming from a stranger's house. And that was the point at which I went, yeah, we've got to curate this ourselves. So that was when we decided I was going for a warehouse model. So we have a warehouse in Wandsworth we operate out of, and yeah, that's where we keep a lot of our stuff. But all the gym stuff, all of the kids stuff, like the kids fun stuff, like ball pits, bouncy castles, all of those things that you'd have for a kids party, that's all done with partners. And all the gym stuff is done with South Bank Gym, who are obviously having a hard time at the moment. But this is a way of us going, well, look, we happen to be quite a COVID friendly business. It was spin bikes, to be honest with you. We were taking the spin bikes off them, renting them out for either a week, 2 weeks, or a month. Couldn't get enough of them, and we were giving half the money in revenue share to the gym. And they were like, "Great, we've a little bit of cash flow. It's tiny compared to what we're normally doing, but you know what? Everybody has to muck in during COVID." And so that was really good. But we're a very stable business in that people will always want to hire stuff, Richard. It's just a question of what do they want to hire. So we'll be seasonal to a certain extent. So as you'd imagine, our most hired items over the past 6 months have been things in the gardens, things like gazebos and patio heaters. We've been doing loads of those because people want to be entertaining in their garden while also being responsible and doing it socially distanced when it's still allowed. And if you'd asked me kind of 6 months ago, I would have said patio heaters are a thing you use in the summer when you're sitting outside, and as the evening gets cooler, you're still sitting outside. Like, it would never have struck me as some people actually want to sit outside through the winter. So I know we're in strange times at the moment, but when people want things, there will be a certain degree of seasonality. But once people are into the ecosystem, like our average, we do once somebody's a customer, we're about 85% of our customers hire again off us within 2 months.
Right, right. And I guess as time goes on, you will
Yeah,
have more and more data to understand what a lifetime value of a customer is. So, what would one customer spend over their
yeah,
lifetime
yeah.
being with you?
We don't have. I think it's all a bit of a smorgasbord of data we have at the moment, because somebody who might have joined the platform to rent the spin bike, we're finding that they then kind of like come back and they hire the fondue set because they're having kind of like just something fun to do. Again, an example of something that you really don't want to own and have cluttering up your house. But we do these really beautiful Le Creuset fondue sets. And that's the kind of thing they get. And then you might find that 2 weeks later, they've suddenly hired a bike rack. I think the customer, I can't remember, I think the driver said to me, oh yeah, one of their kids was going off to uni. They needed a bike rack. And like, once you get people into the ecosystem, they realize this isn't just about fun stuff. It's also about the stuff that you really need. And exactly. And the practicality of it. And camping stuff as well would have been a thing for us over the summer as well. People going, I can go out and I can buy a tent, a four-man tent, which really only fits two people. Why don't I hire one from WhyBuy, a seven-man tent, and then five people could fit in it comfortably? And it's a more pleasant experience because it's just crap that ends up taking up space in your attic or your cupboard or under your bed or your shed or your garage. And at some point, as you said perfectly there, that kind of like sense of, I feel really good that I cleared out all of this stuff that I have, whether it's paperwork or whether it's the clutter that happens in the drawer in your living room. At some point, you go, "Oh, I've had enough of this."
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's a great concept because the fact that people are able to discover you and you have a good range of products that can fit for many different circumstances and purposes, you have something to offer for a lot of people, whether it is a hot tub and a projector or it is a toaster. And I think it's great that you've managed to launch in the
Yeah.
midst of COVID.
Well, funnily enough, we were meant to launch in April, and we delayed as COVID got quite heavily. And then I just called a board meeting with the investors and myself, and I said, I actually think we've called this wrong. I think people want this more. And one of the main investors said, "That's so funny." He said, "I kind of like have been meaning to ring you for about 2 days now." He said, "I've had that same thought." And we said, "I like now's not the time to be. There's no time for caution." Push the button, and we launched 6 weeks behind schedule, but we were pausing and thinking this is a very dodgy time. The main issue we had was our marketing campaign was based around there was an awful lot of spending on the likes of TFL and on the tube and stuff. That was our plan, and suddenly there was nobody who was going to be seeing it, so we had to go purely digital, which is can be very precise, but at the same time, it hadn't been our original plan. So COVID screwed us on the marketing front, but on everything else, thank God, and I'm in, eternally grateful to the circumstances that ended up with us doing well in COVID, because I know it's just been such a horrible experience for so many other small businesses out there these days.
Yeah, yeah. The part of your story that I love is the fact that you validated your idea using Google Ads. Like that is a very, very smart thing to do, an astute thing to do for anybody out there that has an idea to go out there, test the market with some Google Ads and see what sticks, see what demand you get, and see what signals you're seeing.
Yeah, I think the really important thing, if anybody listening to this is thinking about doing it, I would recommend doing it. The only thing I would do is, and I didn't do it, but just make sure you don't do it either, people at home, is don't lie to the punters. If they do the search and they click through, say, look, we're thinking of launching this business. Can I have your name and email address? Would you like to leave me a message or anything? If you try and kind of like just click through and it's just a dead end link, they're like, that was just data harvesting. It's there's nothing illegal about it or anything, but it's just like this is kind of insincere. No, I would highly recommend. You could spend, honestly, you would probably have changed from 300 or 400 quid if you were doing a localized business of going into Google and targeting down to even a postcode level and just browsing. Yeah, I can't recommend enough to people. Anybody who's doing a B2C business, go in and watch a YouTube video that teaches you how to read what Google AdWords are trending at the moment, what are the prices on them, how much would you have to spend, and decide what is your metric. Is it that somebody downloads your app? Is it that somebody visits your website? Is it that they convert and become a customer? Whatever it should be. But like if you're thinking of launching a business, you're going to spend more money than you expected anyway. At the outset, fork out, say, give yourself a budget for argument's sake of 500 quid, depending on the size of the business you're planning on launching, and just try it and see, because it'll give you a very, very good inkling. And there's probably, if I was doing it again, I would do completely different. But the point is that I had a starting point to go from, and I had some data points that I could actually use all of a sudden.
It's interesting when you said you would do it completely different. Is that to say that you made a huge mistake? Because it sounds like it was a relative success.
No, I would have. I started it off, and even the way that I designed that original campaign, I always thought this was going to be a tool hire company. So it was about tidying at home and everything like that. And it was only when we launched and we had to do a very quick kind of like starting to add new items. And there's a lot of this to do with COVID though, so take this with the pinch of salt that it deserves. A lot of this was about having fun at home, whether it was exercise equipment or whether it was a tent for the kids in the garden. Just because you're not going on holidays this year, this will be a little bit of fun. Do a camp out in the back garden stuff. So it's much more fun based than it was kind of like the DIY or tidying up the garden or anything like that. So that was one that. But you see, when I had done the Google ad campaign as a test and everything, I would have focused all of my Google search terms on tools and stuff. So I'd already narrowed myself. So that's what I'm saying as an example of something that I did wrong at the beginning was I went in with too much of a view. I should have been much more focused on the platform rather than assuming what the public wanted items wise. Like if you think of the food delivery apps again, because it's just the easiest thing that people can grasp, they don't think, oh, it's going to be Chinese that we have to focus on, or it has to be this that we. They just go, we'll be anything. We'll do anything we have to. It can be anything that's put onto the platform, and I should be more like that from the outset. So that was a mistake I made.
So, Jamie, you are now launched, doing well. You're in second gear, mate, or first gear, however you want to see it. What does 2021 have in store for WhyBuy app?
Well, 2021 will be out of London and expanding out of London by Easter is the plan. I'm
So
not
you
going
only
to.
cover London at the moment?
We only cover everywhere in the M25 at the moment. This was our kind of like early proof of concept. We will be launching to other cities. We're planning on launching to. We want to be covering more than 10 million homes within delivery area by the end of 2021. And to put it in context, there's 25 million homes in the UK. So we're getting close to 50% by the end of this year. We'll be able to use WhyBuy. We're also working with partners as well. We're not in a position to announce it yet, but we are working with some major retailers for doing click and collect and also working with their customers. So you could walk into certain stores and you might decide I'm having a whatever event you're having and you're going in to pick up certain stuff in one shop. You can also pick up the whatever it is you want there as well from WhyBuy is available. And we're also talking to some of the home rental, where it's kind of like similar to Airbnb style thing, where if you're going to go and stay in an Airbnb in London, what you can do is you can have add-ons at the bottom. You might need a kid's cot, you might want a coffee machine, you might decide I need a cage for the dog. All of these things that if you were in a hotel, you would normally ask the front desk for. These will all be add-ons at the bottom of the hiring process. So that's our kind of B2B strategy there as well.
That is very smart. Sounds like there's some good things ahead.
Yeah, no, it is. It's I think that 2021 is going to be a very interesting year. I think roll on the vaccine because I think we're going to see. I think for all of the negative things that we've had in 2020, there's been a very strong sense of community. I think has developed. I think all of us have spoken more to our friends than we ever have before properly. Normally, we only interact with our friends after a few drinks and things. Now we're actually catching up on the phone properly. I think we're all talking to our families way more. I think it's been a huge challenge in business, though. I don't know if we could have fundraised, Richard, if we hadn't been able to get into the room with people, asking people for large sums of money, having never met them. I don't think that's something you can do over Zoom. I think I might be slightly old fashioned in this regard, but I think at some point you need to be in a room with someone and stare into the whites of each other's eyes and know, are we on the same page? And that's a really difficult thing for startups at the moment to be able to do that. My heart goes out to any entrepreneurs who are trying to launch businesses in this environment at the moment because even though the VC and private equity is very active at the moment, particularly in London, I don't know if you don't have that pre existing relationship. The way I describe it is actually quite simple. If you know somebody already, you can have a completely normal working relationship over Zoom and have those normal things. If you're building a relationship, it's really hard to do it through a screen.
It's tricky. It's tricky. Absolutely.
Very tricky.
Yeah, I think we are getting better than 2019, but that we're a long way to go. And that
Yeah.
regardless, there is no way to replace that human connectivity that we experience when we're in front of someone, looking at that person in their eye and the body language and everything. So Yeah, it's interesting times.
Absolutely, and I think that it's the retail and high streets are having a very hard time at the moment. So hopefully, kind of like concepts like ours and working with them, we're talking to a lot of them at the moment, and they're seeing the opportunity. John Lewis, for example, you can now hire furniture off them for months at end. Selfridges do a clothes rental service now. So we're not in competition with the retailers on the high street. In fact, I'd see us as complementary to them because people might, instead of why buy, it might be try buy. You might try something and then go, actually, yeah, I do really like it. I'm going to keep it.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that same question, whether that is a part of your strategy or your business model going forward, where a customer will like rent something, really like it, and say, "Hey, I want to keep it."
Yeah, so at the moment it's not built into the app. You can't do it automatically. But if somebody loves something, they can contact us and we can say, look, you can keep the one that you have, and it's obviously heavily discounted, or here's what it will be for us to deliver a brand new one for you. So that option is there. I'll be honest, we don't market that as much though because it's a mixed message. Because our message is kind of owning stuff ends up owning you. So we don't want to get into a mixed messaging thing, but absolutely, if customers find that we had it with a bread maker where somebody just went, actually, I love this thing. And I was like, well, do you want a new one or do you want to hang on? Just leave this one with me. What do I owe? And it was like, this. And I was like, we can just charge it to your card and send you an invoice. And they're like, brilliant. Thanks a million. Left us a lovely review on the App Store. But a perfect example of people deciding, I'm not sure if I want to buy this, but I will.
Right, right. Jamie, before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you about your customer acquisition, your user growth. What channels have you used? What's been successful? What mistakes have you made in your launch so far? Something that we can perhaps pass on to the listeners.
Yeah, where we have, so I will start with what we've done wrong because I think people can learn best from our mistakes. Is that we were app only at the beginning, and our website is launching on the 1st of February. And the reason that's actually very important to us is the amount of times people just wanted to show other people stuff, and you can't do that with an app. Obviously, you can't go, and if the other person hasn't got the app, you can't obviously just say here it is. So that has been a thing. We know we'd have much better acquisition. I think the other thing we've discovered is that this is about lifestyle and improving your lifestyle. It's and so we've already started a shift since before Christmas to going to people, hey, enjoy yourselves. Here's a way of you having the stuff that would normally be expensive and out of reach. But here's a way of you doing it. Like we were having over the summer during lockdown and everything like that, people were hiring stuff to go to the park. But instead of going to the park and sitting on a blanket, they were hiring chairs and gazebos and bean bags and kind of outdoor battery powered speaker sets and everything like that. That's been an adjustment for us. So in terms of customer acquisition, those customers who came in for fun, they're better. So we've got to target them more as well. Because once they're in, they still do the really, really nitty gritty things like when they move house, they have to shampoo the carpets or they have to kind of like do a deep clean of their apartment. So they do hire office for that as well. But actually, the hook to get people interested in is, hey, this is fun. You should try it.
Hey, and do you also keep your customers close and drop them an email once in a while? Say, hey, we've got this new, piece of equipment in. You should try
Yeah,
it.
the only thing we don't do is, even though we've the capacity to do it, we haven't started pushing our push notifications on anyone yet, simply because I think one of the fastest, it's basically we little bit of research that we had from a very reputable firm was we were quite proud of the low number of uninstalls that we have. And what they said to us is, look, if you want to keep people on the system, they said, don't start annoying them. You've got to get that balance. So we hired a new commercial director in November who's ex WPP, who's just launching our strategy now for all of that. But yeah, we do want customers to feel the love. We would have some of our customers will contact us and go, we had somebody contact us recently and say, look, I've used you 3 or 4 times, but I'm actually looking for item X. And we were like, okay. And we stuck the item into it was a pet grooming thing. Like it's this thing, it looks like a Hoover, but you use it for grooming your pets and it removes dead hair and gives them a bit of a haircut and everything like that. Thank God animals can't leave reviews on the website, on the Facebook. But things like that, we put that up and immediately it was like, oh, yeah, other people wanted it. I was like, yay, this is brilliant. So this is very much walk before we can run. But when we go into more cities now, between now and Easter, as we start developing our plans and starting to think about going into other cities, and this will be a massive push for us with the data that we're gathering. We're quietly gathering data at the moment. I would put it like that. And when we execute, it'll be very, very nice relationship we have with customers. There are certain things I find quite intrusive when it comes to certain apps. I don't like it if I look in certain apps and then when I exit them, about 5 minutes later, it pops up and says, "Hey, we saw you looking around. Why didn't you order anything?" And it's like, no, don't do that. I find it a little bit uncomfortable. I'm okay with that.
It's a bit creepy.
It's just unnecessarily intrusive, I think, and you've got to get that balance. I think we're all much more data aware as well. We're much more data conscious. It's Since GDPR came in, the amount of people who actively will unsubscribe from spam. You get an email. There are a lot of people now who will actively scroll straight down to the bottom and hit unsubscribe because they're like, nope, not playing this game. So you have to be very careful. But it's about balancing the needs of the business, the needs of the customer. At what point are you helping them make a purchase, and at what point are you just annoying them? And it's always a balancing act. But look, that was the same. That's been the same since the year dot for business. Where do you get the balance in the relationship between pushing yourselves on somebody and politely just seeing what they need?
Yeah, yeah. Keep them happy all the time, every time. Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us and sharing your journey with WhyBuy.app. Where should people find you?
Yeah. Well, look, if people want to go on, just go on to WhyBuy.app. They can download the app from there. The website is live from the 1st of February. And when they download the app, just make sure they keep an eye on the banners. There's always discount codes up there that go up to anything up to 25% off. And people should feel free to try anything they want. Hire the stuff you never thought you'd try.
Well, I'll be looking forward to my hot tub and projector in the midst of summer 2021. Um,
Absolutely, we will take care of you. Don't worry about that.
Jamie, thank you for your time.
No problem at all.
Hey, everybody, it's Richard here. Just wanted to say a huge thank you for supporting the show and listening. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that button. There's a lot more great interviews coming up. Also, find us on Instagram. Our handle is It's Just Business HQ. And also, if you haven't checked out our website, you can find us at itsjustbusiness.co.